sir, for joining us today and helping us with your entrepreneurial journey. And I would like move on to introduce our moderator for the session. So the moderator for the session today with us is Ms. Sukanya Dikshit. Sukanya has been very active in the startup ecosystem in the last 5 years. She has been a serial entrepreneur and has been in the founding team of several startups earlier. She decided to switch the sides of the table and give back to the startup ecosystem in India by working with technology business incubators. Before joining DSSC, she was with Startup Incubation and Innovation Center at IIT Kanpur as a portfolio manager. Prior to this, she has a stint as an entrepreneur working on bioplastics, Fabio Enterprises Private Limited, and was award-winning startup and had a technology patent. So, with no further delay, I would now handle the lead to Sukanya ma'am for the session further. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Muskan, for the kind words and the generous introduction. And pleasure to meet you here, Amit.
Very happy to know, Sukanya, that there is a connection between IIT Kanpur and you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? I have been one of the lucky ones at IIT Bombay as well, to be a student and then get back to working in the ecosystem. I work with DSSE at IIT Bombay now, helping young ideas to go to market.
Awesome.
So that's my DNA. Startups is in my DNA, was in my DNA, and I have been quite active for the last 5 years. So one of the biggest challenges, I would jump straight away into our set of fireside chat questions, Amit, if that's okay.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges, that comes with experience that I faced, as an entrepreneur is building a team. And while I was working on my startups, I often discovered that it's very difficult to get the right complementary skills and onboard the right set of people. So how did you get it right? You built something and the very first time you just kind of nailed it. So would love to understand from your experience.
So basically, it's a confluence of multiple things. And in fact, I started appreciating studies much more. Because in studies, at least, for example, the audience who is in the School of Management, the life seems difficult, but actually it is much easier. Because what you do is what you get. You study hard, you get good grades. There's a one-to-one relationship. But in business, there many a times it is not. It is about external environment. It is about luck. It is about timing, and there are many things which are not in your control. And sometimes things just don't work even when you try your best. So from that perspective, as I was saying, it's a confluence of multiple things. We started with a concept which was not there anywhere in the world, because everywhere in the world people work with brokers. And by the way, NoBroker is a platform which connects, for people who don't know, which connects property owners and tenants and buyers directly with each other without any broker in between. So we did something which has never been done before in the world. So we started with very first principle. And then in terms of the team building, earlier, when we were bootstrapping, we bootstrapped for a year. So I used to hire online women employees in smaller cities who had experience of working in larger companies in metros, but after getting married, they were not getting the time and they had kids. So when their kids were away in the school, they were free for half of the day. So so I reached out to them through portals, trained them online, and they used to work half day a week. So Jugaad. Jugaad is the word for the initial first year. And then afterwards, when we got some funding, then I used to basically interview everybody and try to see whether the push and pull is how much. And hiring is always an iterative process. So we kept on doing it, but ensure that the culture remains good.
Amazing. That's really nice to hear. And for that matter, Amit, I think many of us in the room today have been ardent users of NoBroker, including myself. I have gone into 2 apartments in Bombay with the help of NoBroker, and trust me, the seamless, amazing kind of flow you've built is really helpful. Thank you so much for that.
Very happy to hear it.
Just to top it up with connected with the last comment that you made, that culture is very important. So in one of your talks, I saw you had mentioned the importance of transparency to ensure a good culture within the startup. So as a startup, we often face a lot of challenges. Sometimes there's a cash crunch, sometimes things are not working between founders. So, how do budding startups ensure that their systems are transparent enough and, the employees feel motivated? How does that happen?
Uh, so the answer is pretty simple, but also difficult to implement. Simple, but not easy.
Right.
The solution is simple, which is that allow everybody and anybody in the entire organization to ask you question. So today also anyone, today we have 6,000 employees in NoBroker, but anybody can ask me any question, and actively what I allow is basically anonymous asking of questions, because some people just feel hesitant to put their name and raise hand and ask. So one is to basically be extremely transparent, build systems so that people can ask you questions. And when they ask you questions, be ready that they can insult you, they can demean you, they can challenge you. But if you allow that actively, then slowly a huge amount of trust builds. And people get a feeling that there is a core philosophy that the founder is adhering to. They may not agree with the philosophy, but there's a core philosophy, and that is being consistently adhered. So it's the solution is pretty simple, but it makes you very accountable and it's difficult to implement. But we have been doing that for past 8 years.
So absolutely, it seems to me that founders need to take a lot of answerability, and often, it might be taking some tough decisions, sacrificing for the good of the company. So apart from these, what else can a budding startup do to set up a good culture within their startup? Is there any other thing also you would like to highlight?
So it is about what you should do and what you should not do.
Right.
What you should do is that you should try to hire people for the right reasons. For example, if you are trying to hire a person at a business at a senior level where you want him to be passionate, so in the interview he should be answering about his past job with a lot of passion. Otherwise,
Right.
you'll not get a passionate person. So whatever you want, aim for that. If you are aiming for a sales guy who can achieve his incentives, see whether he will run after money, whether money is important to him, whether his family condition is such that he needs money. So try to make sure that while interviewing, whatever you're looking for, whatever you want, you basically actively look for and iterate and triangulate it in the interview.
Yes.
Second is what you should do, what you should not do, or what you should do after you have taken a person. And that is to actively remove people who don't match with your culture. So, for example, if your culture is that you want performers but not jerks, then in
Right.
case you find a guy who is performing but he is harsh with his team, unnecessarily so, and is mean, you have to fire him even if it costs you business that month. So it's going to be tough, but if you really mean to build a good culture, then buckle up and take that decision.
Absolutely. Amazing insights, I think, Amit. Whatever you're saying is so relatable. So, and also the thing that you started after completing your bachelor's from IIT Kanpur and MBA from IMA. Obviously, you were the creme de la creme of the students of India, and you happened to work in corporate for many years. So, when did that transition happen, and you were struck with the idea of getting into the startup world? And tell us more about the story. I think all of us are excited to hear that.
So I think the reason why I started a startup was because of good salary that I was getting. so I was I was getting extremely, so I was in consulting and then I joined a foreign bank. And imagine this foreign bank, this was Australia New Zealand bank. Foreign bank with extremely sophisticated swab office with some fountain in the reception area and not much work to do because it was all corporate banking, so no physical customers to handle, and a role like a strategy role in which you make some PPTs and that's it, you are done, and some Asia head etc would come once in a while and you just present to him. So it would become us very comfortable, and I started realizing that my way forward, because see, after MBA your instinct is to chase a job which pays high because the media covers high salaries of jobs, and hence your instinct is to chase it. But after you chase it and after 5 years and for the next 5 years you keep on comparing your salary and your designation with your batchmates. That's how everybody does. It's a very natural reaction. Once 10 years passes away, then you feel what a waste of time it is. Who cares? Because out of those 100 people whom you were comparing notes, anyway you are not in touch with them. You are in touch with them, 5 of them or 10 of them, and that's finally the friend that we have is 5. And then you realize that, hey, and that's a message which I would want to give to the students also: don't kill yourself over a day zero job. Anyway, the entire batch is going to shift jobs, change jobs within 1 year. It's better to focus on friendships because these are the guys who are going to forward your resume to their companies. So better focus on the friendships. So after 10, 15 years, I started feeling that have chased salary and I have chased status, but what really would matter is to do something which is challenging and really fulfilling. And it was difficult to take that jump because when you are mid-30s, then you gather EMIs of home loan and then you have kids. So my wife was expecting our kid and she wanted to take a break. My wife is my batchmate from IIT Kanpur. And so she wanted to take a break. But I thought that, and I was in two minds whether I should start something of my own. But the way in which I reasoned was that I still have 25 years of work life left in me. And
Right.
what if 10% of that goes waste? I felt even if 2 years go waste, I still have 90%. So I convinced myself. So everybody tells me that, hey, why did you leave the job? And my thinking was it was an arithmetic decision that 90% is still left. And I would say to this audience who might be 25 to 30 years old, that you have 35 years left. So you just need to give 5% of your entire work life. And in case you are interested, give it a try. So that's the reason why I left my job and took the risk.
Amazing, amazing. I think that was really inspirational, and we would all aspire to do that. And Amit, for that matter, I actually did that. I dropped out of my PhD at IIT Bombay, I
Wow.
think years back. That was a big decision. And I was very persistent. I had exactly the amount of money needed to rent a house for 3 months and
Okay.
nothing else. And that's when I went to through NoBroker. Definitely brokerage was a huge thing for me to be afford that time. So you mentioned fulfilling and challenging. So I think that fulfillment that you must receive from thousands of people, hiring through your, renting out homes through your platform is uncomparable. I mean, you cannot compare any monetary value to it. So
No,
thank you so
you are.
much for doing this for us
Thanks.
again. And, one quality that I developed and I saw that it's very important is to be persistent as an entrepreneur. So what, according to you, is the number one quality that an individual aspiring to be an entrepreneur or launching his or her startup should be developed within themselves to be successful?
So I would earlier perseverance is of course a very, very, very required quality. Why? Because whatever you are trying to do, you are trying to do it in a very, very unique way, which nobody has ever done in that specific way ever in the entire world or in
Correct.
the entire country before. You are trying to solve a specific problem in a specific way. So perseverance is important because many of our friends would say that this will not work. Most of the angel investors and investors would say this will not work. So in that case, perhaps the customers are the only decision makers who should say that this will work.
Correct.
Lately, I have been feeling that apart from perseverance, another quality which is extremely important is optimism. And both go hand in hand because the thing is that and so perseverance and optimism, I don't think they can be separated. Optimism is the input which gives you the output of perseverance. In your mind, you think that something will work out. So you don't have a clear answer as to how it will work out, but you have this inherent optimism कि कुछ तो कर लेंगे, लग तो ठीक रहा है, intuition लग रहा है, data है नहीं country में जो बताएगा मुझे, but fight मारेंगे तो कुछ हो जाएगा. And I think that optimism drives perseverance.
Amazing. So I think you really broke into a very difficult market, Amit. Brokers is a huge thing in Bombay, and I'm sure in other cities too. So, if there was one lesson you would want to tell your younger self, what would it be? I mean, while working, on the startup ecosystem and building your own thing from ground up, what is one very important key lesson that you would tell your younger self?
So thankfully, we haven't committed any large mistake. I think the only mistake which we have done on which I will want to give to my younger self is to basically focus on HR and finance very quickly. So I remember when I was doing my MBA, the organizational behavior subjects,
Correct.
most of the engineers did not used to like. So they used to feel that these are subjects in which a lot of writing needs to be done and a lot of HR softish things are there and there is no maths problem to be solved. And I think this is a common feedback that you can receive from any MBA alumni. सारे MBA alumni यही बोलते हैं कि यार we were focusing too much on maths and accounting, but finally what matters in life is the organizational behavior subjects, the subjects which seem to be very iffy and very soft topics to us. They are the ones who are super important. And similarly, I realized that when I started my company and when we started hiring people, I thought I always used to think that unless there is a job which requires a full-time person, why should we hire that person? So I felt
Correct.
that we are a small team of 20, 30 people. Why should I hire a full-time HR? Can't I act as HR? I can see everybody in the same room. So I used to basically type the offer letters and email it. And I
Correct.
used to pay the vendors through my savings account or company's account. But I realized that HR and finance are basically extremely focused expert functions, and you don't need to wait for them to be so late that it requires a full-time person. Hire them upfront, and the rewards will be very high.
Understood. Amazing. I think this is a very important learning, and definitely, as engineers, we often tend to ignore the social part of, social sciences. We think of it more as a social studies subject. Even I have done an MBA, and definitely I had the same feeling. So, the next question would be, to someone, who aspires to be an entrepreneur in the future, what would be your advice? Should they, work in a startup and learn on the job, or go into a corporate job and then get a few years of experience and then get into the startup world? How does it look like to you? I mean, in terms of the input-output equation that's at play.
So there are two aspects to this. One is practical, another is emotional. So the
Got it.
practical aspect is that unless you have gotten some funds, for example, the way in which you mentioned about the 3 months. So suppose if you want to give it a try for a year at least, then you should arrange for example, MBA students have nowadays, almost all of them have education loan EMIs. You
Correct.
should then do a simple broad back of the envelope calculation that do I have funds to pay my living expenses plus my education EMI plus whatever I might end up spending for my startup, marketing spends, etc.
Okay.
Now you need to get that 1 year funds, because even if you are trying to go for funding, you may not get it for the first 1 year.
Absolutely.
And that money you need to get from your friends, family, or you may work, but that you have to accumulate. So you can't start a company just without doing that calculation. That's a very extremely practical scenario. So
You
one
mean
is this.
calculated risk taking should
Yes,
be.
yes, yes. So one is gather those funds, because otherwise you will give up in 4 months, 3 months, 6 months, and then it's very difficult to pick yourself up again after 2 years to start something of your own. So one is practical thing. Second is emotional, that when do you want to do it? In case you have the funds, funds means basic bootstrapping funds. Then do you want to do it now? Do you want to work in a startup, etc.? I think the data is non-conclusive. So there are amazing founders like Mark Zuckerberg who have done it right out of the college, and they've been very successful. There have been people like me who have worked in corporates for decade, and then they have started that have also worked. So there is no right answer, there is no wrong answer. I think whenever you basically, and many a times working in a startup also is a very, very good soft landing, because you end up seeing the challenging environment and the chaos that a startup entails and the challenge that it entails. And you also get to follow a leader. I often feel that how can you be a great leader unless you have been a great follower first? Unless you have really followed somebody, you have been inspired by somebody, can you really inspire others? So that's my personal feeling. So I suggest that both the options are okay. In case you have financial thing in place, whenever you are feeling the fire, just start.
Amazing. And, one more thing, just out of curiosity. So after working 2 years as an analyst at Cognizant Solutions after your BTech, what made you realize that MBA was the thing that you should be taking up next? Was it, I would like to know the inspiration behind the MBA as well.
So I wouldn't pretend as if I knew much about business or MBA, but I basically felt that I think a typical approach was always to go for something which is tougher. Why I am doing it, I am not sure I was clear. I think I felt that software coding is something which everybody is doing.
Correct.
So then I have really not cracked it. So
Okay.
when I was a student, I want to crack into engineering college. Once I did it, I wanted to basically crack the next frontier, which was MBA. And intuitively, we are Agarwals, and business basically runs in our blood. So that was also more about learning about business. I think that must be subconsciously there.
Amazing, amazing. So how did you see your startup idea before you were even, executing it? And how did you deal with all of that self-doubt? Like you said, investors tell you that, this is not going to work. because in the initial phases, we really don't know anything. What did you see an unseen opportunity, or, how did it click you that when the output is nil or low, how do I start up? How do I go through the journey? So, yeah.
Yeah, great
Well,
question. So I was, as basically we were discussing earlier, from a customer point of view, we thought that people would want to avoid brokerage. As a customer, I wanted to avoid brokerage.
absolutely.
But when we looked around, there was nobody in the entire world who was doing it. So investors were like, hey, why isn't such a company existing in US? Why isn't there such a company existing in China? And we
Correct.
said, we are not copying any company, and we don't know why there is not another company. And but we know that this is an Indian problem. Many of my friends told me that if you start this, the 19 acres magic bricks of the world, they are going to jump into it. And even if your concept is successful, they are going to copy you. So one problem was unproven concept. Second problem was competition jumping in and basically killing you. Third problem was that why will a customer pay you in advance?
Correct.
Real estate customer never pays you in advance. They always get the deal, get the house, then they pay you. But we said we are not on the ground, so we'll charge customer in advance. Third was how this has never been done anywhere in the entire world. Nowhere in the world customers pay for real estate before they do the deal. So these three were main objections, and we did not have satisfactory answer for any of these questions. That is true. But what basically we thought is that as far as logic is concerned, as far as customer problem is concerned, that seemed real.
Right.
And as I said that I believe in a concept which is basically an irrational sense of optimism. So what I mean to say is that yes, you are optimistic, but there is never enough data to prove that what you are going to do will work, because nobody has worked in that procedure ever before. So we just basically, what I assumed was that, okay, we will just keep on focusing on it. I spoke to lots of customers. Those customers said that, yes, we want to avoid a broker.
Right.
Then I said, okay, let's just pursue it. And unless I am proven wrong by the customers themselves, let's not listen to anybody else. So it's
Absolutely.
tricky.
Amazing. So that's the best kind of inspiration. I think customer discovery is one of the major components of what we do at Ideas program as well. We start with minimizing the risk using customer discovery. So that's a very important learning. And thank you so much, Amit, for highlighting that. And the next question, Amit, would be, it has been quite a while since NoBroker has started up, and it was launched, I think, a few years back. So have the notions of leadership and management changed somewhat now, or, have they remained consistent over the years? How has it been?
So now, just to give broadly numbers, we have cumulative 2 crore customers today. We add 75 lakh new customers per year. We have raised around 3,500 crore of funding till now. And yes, our valuation is now basically past $1 billion. So more of 7,000, around 8,000 crore. And we are saving thousands of crores of brokerage every year, and which gives the most satisfaction rather than any other parameter. From the management and from that perspective, I think there is a sea change. So in the first year of starting my company, I used to think that I will do everything. I used to think that we'll hire junior guys, and of course, what is going to be my value add? So I'm going to decide everything because I was by bootstrap for a year, so I took every micro decision. So I assumed that I will do everything. Well, I will hire junior guys. I'll instruct them to do everything. It never occurred to me that I will hire somebody else senior and I will give him a part of the business and will just give him that baby and will not intervene.
Correct.
So it never occurred to me, but I happened to basically hire a person, a senior person. I gave him some portion of the work. And then I was just amazed because I felt now there is one more Amit.
Correct.
And because I then found a person, he was another Amit who used to argue with me, debate with me. And then I felt, hey, great. So there's a person who is passionate and who is putting up a fight and who wants to do good in this. Okay, if some mistakes are committed, that's fine. So then I started basically hiring sharp people and started basically giving them accountability, a lot of accountability. And today I do nothing. Half of my day is just free. I do very little work. It's basically, we have hired lots of entrepreneurs. They were entrepreneurs not before, but in their mind, they're entrepreneurs today, and they handle independent parts of the businesses, and they run them extremely independently. And it gives me even more satisfaction seeing them enjoy that process.
Amazing, amazing, Amit. I think essentially whatever we learn in the MBA business schools are being captured in a half an hour. It's a mini MBA capsule course. I can say that it's the power of decision making and decentralizing the whole decision making process is something that you highlighted just very beautifully. So we have often seen startups offering innovative solutions to real life problems, but over here it's very difficult to make people change their habits and adapt to using the creative solution. It's a very complex process. You have to talk to people, you have to do a lot of pushing your strategies. So how did NoBroker bring about a change in the habits of people? Because it was a habit in Bombay that people used to trust brokers for renting apartments. So was it difficult or how easy was it?
So I will tell you an incident which is not related to NoBroker. So I basically, once I was on an airport, or I think on a road, I saw a sadhu, basically one with big hair and wearing Gerua Vastra. And he took a phone out and he ordered Uber, and Uber came. And I felt, man, basically, as long as the convenience is there, as long as the financial incentive is there, people are going to learn technology and are going to use it. And same thing I saw with my parents also, how they basically learned starting using Facebook and WhatsApp and so on. So I think what we also saw the same thing. For example, I assumed when I started NoBroker that our app will be used by middle to upper class.
Correct.
Because they are more educated, they know how to use the platform, etc. But I am completely wrong. Even today, majority of the properties, see, anyway in the country, majority of the properties are basically across sector, and the pyramid is bigger at the bottom. And that is exactly how NoBroker platform is right now. So it's exactly pyramidal in terms of usage. And I never imagined that a 5,000, 6,000 rupee houses will come in such a large quantity on NoBroker platform. So despite it being in English language, uh, but there has been no challenge. And so I think Indian customers are extremely value sensitive, and they can catch glimpse of where the value is, and they learn. So I think it's amazing approach of Indian customers.
So once you build a startup in India, you can build a startup in any part of the world.
Yes.
Amazing, Amit. I think I'm truly enjoying the interaction and learning a lot from you. I'm going back and writing all of this. So, my last question would be that while working, did you get this idea very early on while you were working, or what was that gap between gestation between ideation and actually incorporating and executing those ideas? And did you use any kind of frameworks to plan this out? And basically I want our audience to have more clarity on implementing their ideas. So if you have a few pointers on that, it would be great, Amit.
Sure. So I will take the question other way as to what are the common mistakes that you can do in terms of when you are doing it, because otherwise it's straightforward that you look at your own personal life, you look at the problems that you are facing, and then you find a solution which you think will help you and hence many more customers, and that's how you basically remain optimistic about that solution. I think the common mistakes that people do is, one is market size. That people pick up a problem which is true, but the market size is small. For example, if all the customers start using it and they start paying you, the revenue would not be in thousands of crores. And unless the revenue is in hundreds and thousands of crores, you should not be looking for VC funding. You should be doing bootstrapping, because they are not going to fund a business which has the potential to earn less than 100 crore of revenue. So I think one big mistake, of which many of my IM friends have also done, is basically solving a problem because they like that problem, but they did not bother to calculate the market size which is available. One is that problem. Second is, when you start, you are so excited about seeing it and doing it that you roll it out across the country, or you roll it out across the city. But I would say, if you are an entrepreneur, don't even do it for entire Bombay. Do it only for Powai, or do it only for Ghatkopar. Take a small sample set. Or if you are doing a B2B business, don't do it for entire world. You do it for one geography, so that your marketing expenses are limited, your ROI is higher on the money that you are spending, and your understanding is also swifter. That's a second mistake that I have seen people doing. Yeah.
So did you also start locally? I mean, how was it?
Yes. So what we did was, one is that we calculated the market size first, and of course, roti kapda makan is large market size. So our problem was not market size, but the competitive intensity and the unproven concept. And what we did was that we went to a mall, because we felt that our friends are giving us biased answers. The friends who because most of your friends are basically acquaintances, and they don't say to your face that your idea is useless. So they will be nice to you. They will say, hey, great thing that you are doing, you are being an entrepreneur, we wish that we could also be so courageous. So they will give that general sahanbhuti and support, but that's not what you require only. So we went to a mall, and we asked strangers that if there was service like this, will you use? And then they said yes, and then they also gave feedback that they would want rental agreement also to be a part of it, which we then incorporated. So we asked complete strangers about their feedback on the product and service before even making a site. If a service like this exists, would you buy it? Would you pay for it? How much will you pay for it? So one was basically this thing. Second was that when we launched, we took only one city, which was Bangalore. So only one city, we just focus on one city. And today also, after 8 years, and after becoming so big, otherwise, we are only into 6 cities. And investors, they scratch their hair. Why we are only into 6 cities? Why we are not in the pan India? But we say no. When you are into lesser cities, you can make those customers happier rather than just chasing vanity metric and making
Absolutely.
investors happy.
I agree. So thank you so much, Amit. Again, I mean, I have so many questions burning at the top of my head, but I don't know
Then
how.
any question? Is there any question that students would like to ask? I would love that.
Yeah. There are a few questions on the chat. Muskan, would you like to take these questions, or should I go ahead?
Yes, if you want, you can go ahead with me.
So one of the questions, I think Roshan has a question, that is it true if you do an MBA from reputed IIMs, you get funding earlier? Because it's super clear that for being an entrepreneur, it is not necessary to compulsorily do an MBA, but it helps. I know. What are your takes on this?
So this is not true. I will tell you the advantage of being from IIT or IIM. The advantage of being an IIT from IIM is that it is easier to get meeting with the investor. That is true. But if you look across today, for example, Paytm founder Vijay, he's not from any famous institute, and look at the largest IPO that he ever did. So what happens is that as long as you can prove it to the investor that you are passionate, you are crazy about this idea, and you can answer his questions at least deeply enough, whatever you know. And as long as your proposition has its value and some customers are going for it, he's going to go with you.
Right.
So degrees are only a filter which helps you marginally to get meetings, nothing more than that. Because what is happening is that today, the people who apply, who basically want to become an entrepreneur, they are in thousands and hundreds, and hundreds of them are IITians and IIM graduates. So it has stopped becoming anything of importance. Now the importance is about your idea, about your current traction. So that has some advantage, but not much.
Absolutely agree. So anonymous attendee asking right now, I have a very good idea. I strongly believe that it works as it is not there in the market, but I'm in the middle of academics. Is it a good idea to postpone working on my startup for 1 or 2 years? Will there be a risk of someone else to do it?
See, now this is a tricky thing. Now it depends what type of values you have, or what type of aggressive stance you have. There are people like Mark Zuckerberg or Apple founder, or to some extent even Rahul Yadav from IIT Bombay, who did not complete his graduation or post-graduation, left it in between. That's also a way that people have done. But there is also another thought which basically says that if you complete your degree, then you have some option to fall back to in case you fail, and hence you are taking lesser risk than what is required, and hence you are being a calculative risk taker. So there is no right answer. There have been cases of success both ways. Depends upon you. I would say that, see, ideas will keep on. So as far as I am concerned, I am that way. Had I been in your place, my risk appetite would not have allowed me to leave job, because Ideas keep on coming. There is no scarcity of ideas today. Uh, but uh, but the emotional journey that you will go through up and down in case your startup idea doesn't work and you don't have a degree is going to be very strenuous. If you're ready for that strain mentally, then please go ahead, don't wait. But if you and your family are not ready for that strain, then perhaps it makes sense to bag a degree, secure your future, and then the entire life is there. So there is no right or wrong answer.
Amazing. So Suyash is asking, what was the process of experimenting with pricing strategy? As this was a completely new concept, it must have been hard.
So pricing strategy was more of experimentation because nobody has ever done what we have done. People only take brokerage. So what we had to do was we have to charge a flat fees, 2,000 rupees. So did you try any of our paid plans or was it free was smooth?
It was a paid plan.
Okay. So in the paid plan, we also started with first of all, and did you take a relationship manager or the freedom plan?
Freedom plan, where I could just contact, go and visit.
Sure. So we also discovered that one was that people would just want to use the product more independently with more features. So that we thought, okay, what will be a price? We said, what about 999? Sounds like a cool price and sound very expensive. So we started with that. And then we also thought as to how much is that guy saving in case he rents through us. He's saving a brokerage, which is so many thousand rupees. So 1,000 rupees seems reasonable. And then over years, we basically increased. Then what we did was we actually, the trick is to think from customer point of view. Will customer pay this much of amount? How much will he save or how much? So then we realized that, hey, the answer is not unique because if somebody is renting a 50,000 rupee home, he can pay more. But if somebody is renting a 7,000 rupees, then he will pay very less. So today we have different pricing strategy for different type of rent. We don't display it so publicly, but based on your behavior on the platform, we display different prices to you. So it evolved and it was based out of common sense.
Amazing. So I think we have 2 more minutes. One last question to you, Amit. One of them is asking, we are focusing more on CSR activities. How is your company helping your stakeholders or customer? I'm not clear what the question implies, but how do you do CSR is what?
I think I will take the last question first, which is, I think, a common question, which is, it says that I have an idea, but I find it difficult to find my co-founder or maybe a good team who believes and be passionate as same about me. What parameters we should look for? So here I have a slightly controversial view and people may or may not agree with me. So I'll give my example of my first semester in MBA. In the first semester of MBA, I thought that I have to make a project group and I will make a group which is extremely good, which means that I will have one CA and one person with work experience and one engineer and one from humanities side, etc., etc. And my hostel friend on the same floor offered me to partner with him as a project person. I said, no, I don't want to partner with you. I want to make this perfect team, which has different people of this specific skill set, etc. I made that team. It was a horrible experience because none of us were friends. Everybody cared about themselves alone. Whenever there was any disagreement, there used to be a lot of fight and it just didn't work out. In my past 8 years, I have seen a lot of companies breaking up because the founders don't get along. So I would suggest instead of searching for skill set alone, which you can always hire for, as long as co-founder is there, hire a person with whom you are comfortable or whom you are friends with. That I would give very high weightage because you are anyway venturing into something which nobody has ever done before and you need to figure it out, right? It's from first principles. So my suggestion would be to basically go for friends. I had a closing remark, Sukanya, if you
Yes,
allow me
absolutely.
to. So my closing remark, guys, would be that, as I said earlier, that and as you have seen with Sukanya's experience also, running a successful startup is the best feeling in the world. There is no doubt about it. There is no politics. You don't report to anybody. You can do any experimentation. You get credit for whatever you achieve. So that is the best feeling in the world. You can achieve this feeling by either working in a company, in another startup where the founders are good and who give you huge amount of accountability. Do try that. But at any point of time, you feel that you should start something of your own, don't think too much about risk. The fact that you have basically graduated from a good MBA college means that you have a degree for life, and hence you will surely get a job. So, for example, my final decision of quitting was because I was giving an interview. And the interview that I was giving was basically the person who was interviewing me, he had this poster on his wall, which had a quote by Mark Zuckerberg, which said, not taking any risk in life is the biggest risk. You think about it deeply. The act of omission is much bigger than the act of commission. Because when you're 60 years old, when you're retired, when you're sitting on an armchair, you are going to regret, hey, वो मेरे दोस्त ने कर लिया, देखो आज वो कितना बड़ा आदमी बन गया, मैं तो औरों का ही चाकरी करता रह गया. So if in case you ever feel that you have this urge of doing something of your own, remember that 5 years, 10 years, 15 years earlier, an entrepreneur came on, on a webinar and told you this. I would say you have huge amount of work life in ahead of you. Take a 10% risk. Take a 1 year, 2 year risk. Nothing wrong will happen. Worst case, you'll be back in the same job with the same salary. Don't worry.
Thank you so much, Amit. I think we are all going back with a lot of thoughts and inspiration from you. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit sir, for joining us today. I think, like me, every one of us is present here could draw some learning from this session. And thank you, Sukanya ma'am, for taking out your time and driving this session with the wonderful set of questions that we had. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Muskan.
Thank you. Hope to stay connected.
Sure, Sukanya. Sure. Thank you.